What is the book of Revelation about? It tells us right at the beginning. So if you would turn to chapter 1, verse 1, it reads, "This is the revelation of Jesus Christ." It is the revelation of Jesus Christ. It is not John's revelation. It is the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him, that is Jesus, to show to his servant the things which must soon take place. And he sent and communicated by his angel to his servant John. So right off the bat, it is told to us that this is revelation that is revealed to Jesus Christ. So it's got to be important. As we approach the book of Revelation for the next couple of weeks, this week we're going to be reading beginning at 9 through 13. It's tough. It's really, really difficult reading. But let us also understand the flip side of that, and that is this is really, really important. And each time we read and meditate upon it, I believe that God will be gracious and favorable to us and show us more and more understanding. But specifically, I want to talk about chapter 5 of Revelation. So if you would turn to chapter 5. Let's read together verses 1 through 6, shall we? Turn to Revelation chapter 5, 1 through 6. Are you ready? Let's read. "Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a mighty angel proclaiming in a loud voice, 'Who is worthy to break the seals and open the scroll?' But no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth could open the scroll or even look inside it. I wept and wept because no one was found who was worthy to open the scroll or look inside. Then one of the elders said to me, 'Do not weep. See, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Root of David, has triumphed. He is able to open the scroll and its 7 seals.' Then I saw a lamb looking as if it had been slain, standing at the center of the throne, encircled by the 4 living creatures and the elders. The lamb has 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth." So this is the setting. We have a situation where John is given a vision and he sees the right hand of him who was seated on the throne, and he sees a scroll. And then he hears a cry of an angel who says, "Who is worthy, or who has the authority or the virtue to open the scroll and to break its seals?" And then the realization is, understandably, no one in heaven or on earth or under the earth was able to open the scroll. And that, not only was it frustrating for Apostle John, but it was a distressful realization. That on the one hand, he must realize that the scroll represented something very important. In fact, as we're going to continue to read Revelation chapter 10, it tells us that the scroll is nothing less than the mystery of God. And given the opportunity, know the mystery of God, he comes to the realization that no one is apparently worthy to open the seal to let the ordinary people like us to know what it contains. How frustrating that must have been. What is the scroll about? What is the mystery of God all about that the book of Revelation contains and is going to be revealed to us. As we read chapter 7 and 8, and it's the unrolling of the seals is going to continue into 9 and 10. We are seeing some amazing things. We are reading some amazing things. Things that are very difficult for us to understand. And I was, yesterday I was finishing up preparation for this. I was trying to figure out what must Apostle John, what was his experience? I was wondering. All kinds of things. Awe, being in absolute awe of this opportunity to see the revelation of Jesus Christ. But I couldn't help but think that there must have been some frustration on his part, because human ability or human words are so limited. And what he was seeing and hearing must have been so much more, infinitely more than what he could understand for himself and to be able to write in words. And as I was reading, as we're reading through the book of Revelation, I think we have that similar experience. We're reading things that are very difficult to understand. We're reading things that seem to have no present relevance or application. But at the same time, I just have this sense that I wish I could understand it better. I wish I could see it clearer and have a fuller grasp of what Jesus is trying to tell us. So I could only speak to you today in general terms. But clearly, the mystery of God includes accountability. There's clear accountability that is called for here. As the seals are being revealed, we see some awesome judgments that are coming. As fire and earthquake and destruction and death and all of these things are happening. So these things are calling us or reminding us that we are accountable. Ultimately, we are all accountable for the life that we are choosing to live here and now. Even though the events that are described in the book of Revelation will not be happening for some time. It hasn't happened for thousands of years. Chances are it may not happen for a while. Perhaps not in my lifetime, perhaps in your lifetime. We don't know. But we know that what is described here so far, as we have read up to chapter 8, contains some awful acts of and events of judgment. And not only do these things apply in the future, but it has present application for us, because I believe that the book of Revelation speaks about our accountability. We're going to have to make account of the life that we are living and the choices that we are making, and the consequence of those things are judgments of God. And so in a way, this is kind of a wake-up call for all of us, waking us up to the reality of what is going to come, what God has planned for all of us, as well as rest of humanity. But it's not all bad. I think as God reveals His plan in His heart to us, especially as we move closer and closer to end times, I think there's some positive things as well. I think the revelation of the mysteries of God will give us all the answers to all the important questions that we ask and the world is asking. There's so many unanswered questions, and perhaps even more unanswerable questions from our perspective. There's so many things that we don't understand, so many things that we can't foresee. And I believe that as God is revealing His heart and His plan to us as we prepare for the end time, all of these unanswered questions and unanswerable questions will be made known to us. We're going to have this celebration of aha moments. We're all going to be looking at each other and saying, aha, now I understand. Now I get it. All these things I didn't understand before. All of these things that frustrated me. All of these things that tripped me up. All of these things that caused me to be deceived and make the wrong choices. All of these things will be answered. There's not going to be any question that is not going to be answered. I think that's going to be part of the revelation of God's heart. And even very intimately to all of us, as we ask ourselves, why do I have so many problems? And why can't I solve my problems? Or collectively, we ask ourselves, why are there so many problems in this world? And why can't we solve these problems? Those things will be answered as well. Because we all want that. We all want lives that are free from all of these negativities. We want to be free from all troubles and pain and suffering and frustration. All of these things get in the way, obstacles and opposition. We want to be free from these things, individually as well as generally. I don't know how many of you know who John Lennon is. I guess most of you do. She's pretty famous. In the 60s, he wrote a song called Imagine. And that song, as best I could tell, addresses those kinds of questions. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with this world? Why are there so much evil? Why is there so much chaos? And this is the way he addressed it. He says, imagine life where there's no heaven or hell. He says, imagine life without countries or religion. No reason to kill or die for. No possessions, no greed, no hunger, just people as one in peace. On the surface, that sounds good. But we just don't have the ability in and of ourselves, even collectively as entirety of humanity, we just do not have the ability, no matter how much we want there to be no conflict and no pain and no greed and no selfishness, as much as we want a life for ourselves, for all of us, for the future generations. As much as we want these things, there's just no way that we could bring about a life or a world where we are free from these things apart from Jesus Christ. I think underlying theme of the book of Revelation and revealing of God's mystery and his heart, underlying is that promise that in and through Jesus Christ, no matter how awesome you're imagining life to be, life can be so much more than what we could imagine for ourselves. Despite all the progress and advancement as humans we are making, last 20, 30, 40 years, we've seen some incredible inventions and things that people 50, 60 years ago probably could not even imagine. And the other day I was thinking to myself, well, when in the next 10 or 20 years, I wonder, as I'm getting older, what I would struggle with. Because I see older people, I see my in-laws, they're having trouble even with smartphone. And I was thinking to myself, what would cause me to have problems? Things that normal people can use every day, what kind of problems or what would I have problems with? And I'm sure, I can't imagine, but I'm sure there will be things in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years that is going to be very difficult for me to adapt to and use that everybody else uses. Despite all of these things, all the wonderful inventions and developments and accomplishment and everything that we have achieved, there's probably more suffering today, more problems and issues than ever before. Life is so much more complicated than it used to be for individuals as well as the world. In the military, they use an expression called, not expression, a word called MUB, M-U-B-B. Is that right, Daniel? Can I check off on that? Yeah? It means messed up beyond belief, MUB. Google it later after service and see if it's true. Life is, in so many ways, messed up beyond belief. And sometimes we just have to take a step back and say, what is going on here? And when will it stop? When will it get better? I think we as the world are asking those kinds of questions because things just seem to be going out of control. And our individual lives are getting smaller and smaller, less and less significant. And we realize that we have very, very limited opportunities, limited abilities, or power to do much about what is going on, especially the negative things. And I think one of the things that the book of Revelation is revealing to us is that it is God alone who has the authority, power, willingness to straighten out the mess that we are in and the mess that is getting worse and worse each decade, each year. That he will, as we will continue to read and see in the book of Revelation, fulfill the promises that he has made from a very long time ago. Those promises some are general, some are very private and personal, but we believe that as we are reading through the book of Revelation, that in Jesus Christ, God will fulfill all of his wonderful promises, and these promises would be far greater, far more wonderful and beautiful than we could possibly imagine. That through Jesus Christ and him alone, we will be able to see and experience and live in a world where there are no more wars and crimes and hatred, that there is no death and sorrow and tears, as the book of Revelation promises us. And center of all of that, all the wonderful promises that we have from God, center of it all is Jesus. Not only for the humanity and the world in which we live in that seems to be deteriorating and getting out of control, but for all of us as personally as well, because we are children of God. And there are wonderful and beautiful promises for every single one of us. Despite the fact that we don't feel very loved and very careful, we don't feel that personal connection to Jesus Christ. We don't feel every day Jesus coming into our lives and helping us with David and Goliath experiences of our own. But the promise is there, and the hope is there that someday, hopefully sooner rather than later, in and through Jesus Christ, we will come to the realization that all this isn't the entirety of life. That what we are living now and what we are experiencing, the blessings as well as the difficulty, is just a tiny speck compared to the entire plan that God has for us as a world and as individuals. Especially where we have so little hope and so little enthusiasm and optimism and positivity in our lives. It helps for us to stop and realize, especially through the revelation of God's heart to us, that it's all about Jesus. It's not about me. It's all about Jesus and the possibilities and the promises that there are in and through Jesus Christ. Look at verses 5 and 6. It reads, "Then one of the elders said to me, 'Stop weeping, look closely. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has overcome and conquered, he can open the scroll and break its 7 seals. Verse 6, and there between the throne and among the elders I saw a lamb standing, bearing scars and wounds, as though it had been slain, with the 7 horns and with 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God, who have been sent into all the earth. After the frustration of recognizing that there is no one worthy, we are told that Jesus is alone worthy. He's described as the Lion of Judah, the root of David. And most of us know, especially if you have any kind of teaching from our Jewish resident Jewish scholars like Pastor Ezra and Pastor Unu, that these are very Jewish titles. And it basically says, it basically sums up the Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah coming from the tribe of Judah and King David's line to rule over earth and put end to all earth's pain and sorrows, including in our personal lives. And so there's an emphasis on Jesus and the fact that he is the fulfillment of the Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah. I don't have time to go into much of that, but it's all about Jesus. We know that. It began with Jesus. It continued with Jesus. Now as we are reading about the end times, it's all about Jesus. Jesus is described as the Lion of Judah. And then in verse 8, he's described as the Lamb. And most of us understand the dynamics of Jesus being described as the lion. In other words, he has all the authority, he has all the power, he's able, but at the same time, he's the lamb, and the Bible describes him as the lamb, as if he were slain, and we understand the significance of describing Jesus that way. Jesus, being the lion, has the characteristics of being majestic and power, rule, and authority, but not just sometime in the future, but presently as well. That as we honor and believe in Jesus, that this Jesus who's described in the book of Revelation as the lion has power, authority, majesty, all of these attributes available to help us. So that even when we are standing in front of our Goliath every day, we need to understand that as believer in Jesus Christ, we have access to Jesus as being the lion with all the positive and powerful and authoritative attributes that come with who Jesus Christ is. And then the lamb. Why the lamb? Because Jesus' characteristic includes meekness and innocence and sacrifice. So that as the Lamb of God, the application is not just sometime in the future, but even presently. The Lamb of God comes to us in our time of need to help us with compassion, that he cares about us, he knows us, and he wants to help us. And this Jesus Christ, who's Alpha and Omega, and everything in between, is going to come and rule the earth sometime in the future. Absolutely. We believe that. But even today, no matter our situation or circumstances, Jesus Christ, who is everything, knows everything, is all powerful, all compassionate, with all of his mercy and grace, is here to help us, to help you and to help me. It's kind of like, most of you probably saw C.S. Lewis's Chronicles of Narnia. Aslan, is that the proper pronunciation? He's the symbol of Jesus Christ. As the lion, that majestic lion, that beautiful, powerful lion. He had authority, he had power, he had control, but ultimately his victory came by him willing to surrender himself and sacrifice himself, and it is through his death that freedom came to the land, or to the kingdom of Narnia. C.S. Lewis took this story, this image, this promise, and made a beautiful story out of that. And then the rest of the chapter tells us that Jesus is alone worthy. He's worthy of praise. He's worthy of glory and honor. And then all created things will someday worship him and honor him. Not just certainly sometime in the future, but also presently as well. Question is, does it matter? These things that are described in the book of Revelation hasn't happened yet, but it will. That's what we believe. It will happen. Even though we may not understand the details of what is going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, it will happen. And if that's the case, if that's the fact that the Bible is describing to us, then it has to matter to us. Not just in the future, but it has to matter to us presently. There has to be relevance now so that we will prepare ourselves for the future, because if we're not prepared, then instead of celebrating and sharing in the joy, we're going to have regrets and saying to ourselves, only if I had prepared as God had warned me to prepare. It matters, and it should matter. When these things occur, and they will certainly occur, we want to make sure that we are properly prepared. This is not a choice that we are going to be required to make in the future, but this is a choice that God is calling us to make today, even today, and every day of our lives, so that today and every day we are not focusing on the things of this world, we are not focusing on ourselves and our hearts, but that we focus on God's heart, his plan, and his purposes for all of us. Because given the choice, every single one of us wants to make the right choice, choosing his heart over ours, choosing his way over our ways, choosing his will over our will. If the events that are described in the book of Revelation were to happen today, how different would we be? Very different. And that is the quality and character and focus with which Jesus wants us to live every day, even today. And I think that's one of the relevant purposes that we have the privilege of reading and learning from the book of Revelation. It's all about Jesus. Every day, not just in end times, but every day, it's all about Jesus. Under every circumstances, it's about Jesus. We know that he's able to do things that we cannot do, not even close. He knows everything that we do not know. He's able to answer everything that we feel are unanswerable or are being unanswered. So the question that I want to leave with is, how important is Jesus in your life, and in your everyday life, even under very challenging and difficult circumstances? And is every day of my life and your life focused and centered around Jesus, or is it still about the world, about ourselves? That's an important question that we need to be able to answer in the positive. Let's pray.